we go. So good evening, everyone, and welcome. And for some of you, welcome again. Thank you for joining us for the second webinar in our six-part series, The Arts of Eastern Europe and Eurasia, which is designed to support educators in bringing the rich artistic traditions of Russia, Eastern Europe, and Eurasia into their classroom. Most of you know my name, but if you don't, my name is Sandra Grudic, and I'm the Education Outreach Administrator for the Davis Center for Russian and Eurasian Studies. Series is a collaborative initiative between 8 different institutions, the Davis Center, as I mentioned, the Center for Russia and East European and Central Asia, the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and rather than repeating, they're all Russian, Eastern Europe, and Eurasian Center, but at University of Pittsburgh, University of Kansas, the Ohio State University, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Indiana University, and University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. So as a reminder, each of the 6 90 minutes webinars in this series will focus on a different art form, ranging from music and dance to literature, visual arts, and so on. We encourage you to register for any or all of the upcoming sessions. And while the webinars are designed as part of a cohesive series, you are welcome to attend as many or as few as you'd like. So educators who attend all 6, as I mentioned, will be eligible to receive 10 professional development points or contact hours. To ensure accurate tracking for those seeking credit, please make sure your full name is displayed on Zoom so that we can mark you as present. So finally today, we are honored to be joined by Daria Khitrova, whose work sits at the intersection of arts, media, and social practice. This broad range of interest reflects the theoretical core of her research, how artistic forms interact with their cultural environments. Daria is the author of Lyric Complicity, Poetry and Readers in the Golden Age of Russian Literature, and a study of the 19th century Russian poetry and its role in the everyday life of its contemporary readers. Her forthcoming book, Impossible Project, I'm not sure if it already got published, The Story of Russian Ballet and Its Survival. It's supposed to be at Oxford University Press 2025, situates Russian ballet within the political, religious, and aesthetic debates of its time and examines the art form as a dynamic and evolving institution, viewed both from behind the wings and from the audience. So in today's session, Daria will guide us through the Russian ballet as a powerful cultural force shaped by the shifting pressures by the 19th and 20th century. So please join me in welcoming Professor Khitrova.
Thank you very much. And let me start by sharing my screen. Does it work?
It does. Wonderful.
Um, Somehow I cannot see anybody. Is that
You can't because it's in a speaker mode, so you won't see anybody while you're sharing screen. But if anybody sends a chat question or anything like that, I'll make sure to unmute myself. I'll monitor for that.
okay? Okay.
And then for the
All right.
discussion, we'll just stop sharing and everybody will see
Obviously.
everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for inviting me. And yes, the news is that my book did come out. This is it. And there is honestly no shortage in the scholarship on ballet and Russian ballet and so forth. But one of the reasons for me to take up the project of this impossible project of telling the story of Russian ballet and its survival is that uh, I've been doing it for quite a long time of following the scholarship, but I have yet to read a completely nonpartisan book on the subject. Because, I mean, of course, as any art form, the history of ballet is the history of conflicting opinions, views, and narratives, and so forth. With ballet, the difference is that what is in dispute is the very basis of this art form. That is, where is the essence of ballet lies? For some, it is the idea of dance illustrating the music. For others, historically especially, it lies in the idea of conveying the drama on stage. For still others, in producing stunning spectacle. So it's all different and all very different priorities that ballet insiders and ballet writers and ballet practitioners held as the basis of their art. And normally, of course, one side wouldn't listen to another. And this is the way the scholarship often would be written, is that it usually takes sides too, and it happens to be based on the writer's own preference in ballet that is contemporary to them, that would be presented as a sort of a objective, matter of fact knowledge, and then projected back into history, as if it was a common sense. So, for instance, let's say when the Sleeping Beauty premiered, one of the most foundational classical ballets in history. When Sleeping Beauty premiered, many of the reviews were actually lukewarm at best. And the easiest for a scholar now, 130 plus years later, is just to say that the critics are basically stupid and they didn't get the idea of what the masterpiece they just witnessed. Or let's say you can list half a dozen or a dozen, or a lot of books that would basically tell you the story of the ballet existence, of the ballet history, as if the whole point of it was to finally come to the crowning achievement of the choreography of George Balanchine, especially, of course, in America. You'd have a lot of books like that. And of course, yeah, but Balanchine was great and Sleeping Beauty was great, but it is clear that this is the matter of priorities, and this is what my approach in the book is: to listen to all sides and try to understand the values of each, just because they can be opposite. Then it becomes clear that, in fact, yes, this Sleeping Beauty critics that didn't particularly liked it, they were simply sticking to the theory that was prevalent throughout the 19th century, actually starting from late 18th century, that what counts in ballet is the power of drama. Whatever moves you as a drama on stage, whether it does move you or not. And drama speaking, Sleeping Beauty, well, it's a fairy tale. It's kind of thin on that front. And the same, by the way, was the case with the Nutcracker. Just a couple of years later, it wasn't this instant classic. It's often presented. Also because drama-wise, it's kind of weak. To the point, by the way. I mean, we can ask anybody what the art of ballet is about. Art of ballet is supposed to be about dancing, about dance. But when you look at the, let's say, this is the entry for ballet in the leading encyclopedia in Russia back in late 19th century. So it's somewhere around 1890, which is also happens to be the year when Sleeping Beauty premiered. So this is kind of the flourishing moment of the classical ballet. So you have this incredible definition, and it's not signed, but I'm pretty sure I know who the author was, and he was a ballet critic for 30 years. So he goes, ballet is a theatrical production accompanied by music in which the participants, through the means of pantomime, that is silent acting, and dances, express various characters, thoughts, and passions. But okay, ballet is a kind of drama which, in the absence of the spoken word, is expressed by graceful or expressive movements, facial play, beautiful gestures, and finally in dance. Finally. Only finally. So dance is not a priority at all. And then this is what he finishes with. Genuine miming, that is the pantomime acting, is now demanded of ballet, without which it cannot be included among the dramatic arts. The dancing alone is not enough. There must also be skillful acting. That is pretty amazing. The idea that dancing alone is not enough for them back in the moment where classical ballet was just shaping up in terms of repertoire that we now know. And of course, it would be completely crazy for a today ballet practitioner. For them, absolutely, it is all about dance and nothing else. Now, yeah, so this is one kind of one side of the discussion. Another side would be, yeah, going back to Balanchine with his idea that it's all in dance, but dance is supposed to, yeah, so like he is the hero liberator of ballet from narrative plots and heavy designs, heavy designs would be the another charge against the Sleeping Beauty, by the way. But it also meant, would say the critics from the other side, that sort of another kind of subordination, not to drama, but rather to music, the dance to music, which has in fact happened in starting from mid 20th century. So, in any way, so even from what I just said, it is kind of easy to recognize that much of ballet history has been shaped by an inferiority complex, a huge one. Of all the arts, ballet depends most on the bodies of the performers. And it is this physicality that has long been seen as the opposite of things spiritual or intellectual, something we associate with arts most of all. And hence, all these attempts on the part of ballet to kind of find a senior sister art to lean on, gain from its authority, be it drama, like we just discussed, be it music in especially yes in Balanchian tradition since mid 20th century, be it visual arts in ballet modernism, especially in what associated with Ballet Russe and Serge Diaghilev, company's contribution to ballet, where they actually had the most leading people the most leading artists work for ballet, that which was completely unprecedented and never unheard of before and after. People of the caliber of Picasso and Matisse. So, and critics often talk about ballet as a synthetic art. Well, and it's true because normally the ballet production would be involving, first of all, yes, dance practitioners, but also musicians, designers, often writers or poets even. But what is routinely described in sort of peaceful, nice terms like collaboration or synthesis or this German long word Gesamtkunstwerk, um, in reality often is a pretty painful distribution and redistribution of power. In the 19th century, we have choreographers who dictate to composers like the last important person. And so, for instance, the choreographer would literally dictate, right, to composers, including, say, to Tchaikovsky, saying, okay, I need 48 bars of waltz and then 92 bars of adagio or something. A century later, it flipped. Now, choreographers happily submit to an existing score, even incredibly kind of hard for dancers to follow, or even to an existing recording, which is absolutely incredible to think of. Now, so yeah, the question of authority in ballet is also the question of authorship. Who is it who is author of the work? In the 19th century, it used to be an author of the story, a libretto writer. They were considered authors. Then it moved to composers somewhere in early 20th century. Then to designers actually, and then to choreographers. All of at the expense of dancers, interestingly. Um, at the same time, though, if we go back to the 19th century, again, especially at the moment of the kind of the golden age of the classical ballet in the late 19th century, a ballerina, and I use this term in a 19th century meaning, a ballerina meant not just a job, but a rank. Ballerina was only a leading dancer, female dancer in the company. Normally there would be two at a time, only two ballerinas. So the ballerina actually had enough authority to determine a lot of her own steps, a lot of her own choreography in a ballet. And oftentimes you read the reviews in the 19th century, and they would tell something. Oh yeah, this ballerina. Often there were guest stars visiting ballerinas. She, let's say, didn't have time to learn her step for this and that ballet, and so she used her own dance that she rehearsed before, in the middle of the existing production, which is a fascinating practice. Yeah, it could be that, or it could be that she would determine what she wants to dance in collaboration with choreographers. So, for instance, in that same kind of program that Petipa writes for Tchaikovsky, the choreographer, she would say something, okay, I need waltz here for that amount of bars and whatever allegro here. But then when it comes to the solo dance of the ballerina, he writes, hold on that. I need to talk to ballerina. He needs to talk to her to find out what she wants. Uh, and this is a fascinating practice to think about. Even though the later ballet scholars, judging by 20th century standards and values, they routinely, describe it as a distortion. But the truth is that, yeah, the idea of a stable choreographic text, a stable choreography of any particular ballet is as stable as a text in the book, or I don't know, in the score, in the musical score. All the idea of the stable choreography with this all-controlling author behind it came to ballet relatively late. And moreover, it has to be, it is the case that is to this day highly debatable question or issue, I should say, probably in the world of ballet, and that is the instability of classical repertoire, instability of classical ballet for several reasons. One, because well, the let me stop sharing so that I can go to the link. So one, because bodies are different. Because let's say in the same for this one leg, the ballerina was, I think, 150 in meters, which would be what in feet? Like 50 or something, like very short and pretty plump. They didn't diet back then. Ballerinas didn't diet in the 19th century. So you can imagine what the difference it is when it is a relatively short, relatively plump person doing the steps for this one leg, as opposed to nowadays contemporary priorities, where in America mostly shaped by Balanchine alone, where they do prefer taller, slimmer young women with smaller heads, interestingly. And I pretty much know that's for a reason. But also, yes, priorities changed. Let's say one of the reasons why they wouldn't diet were because there was no such thing as high lifts back in the 19th century choreography. And a lot of, if you see this stuff in the classical ballet, it means that they were introduced at some point in the 20th or 21st century in this text. So you never actually watch Swan Lake. You watch something like this version or that version of Swan Lake. And let me actually, yes. Yeah, another problem is that yeah, so when it comes to the authority and when it comes to the authorship, is that in fact, yeah, ballet is famously mute. Ballet is the only art that is based on the idea of elimination, that is, elimination of the spoken word from stage. Um, Proudly so. But it also has no written language. Not because, meaning there's no system of notation that would be equivalent to, let's say, notation in music that everybody accepts and everybody learns. Not because there are no systems of notation, but because there are many. There is no one that everybody would adhere to. Which means, yeah, that there is no way to basically record any of this, and even video doesn't quite solve the problem. But so yeah, most choreography, even for pieces we think that kind of are preserved from the classical time, most of choreography doesn't survive. It takes just continuing performance with no gaps to preserve the work, and even then, it's still gonna change for all kinds of reasons. And but at the same time, and it's pretty important and pretty amazing that it actually used to have its own language, not written, but its own stage language, and that was the language of pantomime. They were able to convey a lot of stuff, drama-wise, a lot of stuff to their audiences through pantomime, through the language of gestures. And unfortunately, what remains of this is just you know, is not a lot, let's say so. It used to be an elaborate language. So to illustrate these 2 points about the instability of classics and about the pantomimic language, let me try to share my screen again with you to um, and watch together a clip from Swan Lake. Okay, is it visible?
Yes. Let's see if the sound works.
Great question.
It
Does
does.
it?
It
Okay.
does.
So yeah, let me say set the scene a little bit. So this is this one like beginning of the Act Two in Western productions, Part Two of Act One in Russian productions. What happens is that the guy on the left is the prince, who is celebrating his birthday. And obviously he comes of age, and as a gift, he just got a crossbow. This is in medieval Germany, a crossbow from his mother. So he just wants to go to use it immediately. He goes to hunt, and there he encounters a beautiful swan princess who is immediately scared of him. So I want you to look at the gestures because we're going to be doing a little bit of a translation. What is the dialogue between them? And it's going to be a real dialogue. I mean, not spoken, but still real. So this is where the dialogue begins, and note the change in music. This is your narrative music. Evil sorcerer appears. The guy she was talking about a minute earlier in her pantomimic language. So he goes back to his crossbow. Okay, what was the dialogue about? Any ideas? Let's do this kind of spontaneous analysis. Anybody has an idea?
But she was a captured princess, right?
She was a captured princess, yes.
So
Mm-hmm.
she was trying to explain that to him, her captivity.
Exactly. It's funny because there is such a thing as I mentioned the choreographic notation, that there are several system of notation that are available. And in fact, Harvard has the most unique collection of choreographic notations from classical ballets from the time, from early 20th century, recorded in a specific system by people who were, working directly with the choreographers. It's over 100 of ballets recorded that way, even though most of them partially. But the fun part is that, for instance, in the swan-like notation, when it comes to this very scene, it is actually all done verbally. There is a verbal dialogue, and it starts with. So, if anybody wants to jump in, because if not, I'm going to go back to sharing and just provide a sort of a translation. Uh, all right, let's do it again. So, okay, let's skip. So here the only thing is that she is experiencing fear and anxiety because she's still a bird, and she as a bird she is in fear of his crossbow because he's right there to hunt. So his play is that no, this is not what I meant. She's still fleeing from him because, oh yeah, now I get it. It's because of my crossbow. All right, so let's go ahead for a little. So this is a little bit of a hide and seek until they actually start talking. By the way, are you able to see me while you're looking at?
Yes.
No?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
good. Yeah, because I'm gonna be gesturing too. So the first question, and this is the grammatical question that he asks, is you, who are you? And she goes, and this is pum pum pum, it's the crown. She refers to the crown. She goes, I am the princess of swans, or rather, I'm a swan queen, and in Russian it is in this grammatical order: Tsaritsa lebedей, a tsarina or queen of swans. So first comes the crown, second comes the swan gesture. And then he bows because he is a polite person. He goes, nice to meet you. Especially considering that she is a royal, like him. He is a prince too. She gestures towards the backdrop, which is the lake, and she goes, "See the lake, this rippling gesture. This lake is, in fact, the result of suffering. This is the gesture for suffering or murder, like bad stuff, that resulted in tears. Those are tears. The lake is composed of tears." And here she missed one gesture. She's supposed to do like this, and this would be of my mother. Because there is the evil sorcerer. This is the gesture for evil. Who did it to her? But there is a remedy, which is that if someone she gestures to the heart will love me to the point that he will swear, meaning, and this is referring to marrying, and you're supposed to commit to marry a bird. Then, let me go for a sec because it's important. So, again, she's captured princess. She is in the form of the bird because of the evil sorcerer. So, but she will be free if a person would commit to love her and marry her. And in that case, and at that point, she's gesturing towards her, will be as one no more. This is no more. And he goes, "Oh yeah," in a minute of contemplation. "I swear." So yeah, the point was that he has to not only to commit to love her, but to swear. He goes, "No, no, no, you have to think because as we happen to know, this is only one time opportunity. So here's the sorcerer. He pleads him not to fight the prince. The prince, yeah, this is the kind of idea of confrontation. He goes, "Oh, by the way, my crossbow that I will use to fight." So here is your this scene this is crucial scene from the beginning of the again the is either Act Two or Part Two, Act One, of the Swan Lake in the American Ballet Theater. Now, if you look, and it's gonna be okay. I'm gonna share again for just several, like 30 seconds. Mm, oh, okay. Would it give me an opportunity to?
Are you trying to share a different screen, a different video, or PowerPoint?
Okay, no, 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 different video. Okay, I think I know. Give me a sec. Give me 1 second. Okay. We're about. Do you see it? Different ballerina?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so now what we just saw coming from American Ballet Theater. What we're going to see now is the Mariinsky Ballet production of the Swan Lake. I think it's 2007. And it just bear in mind that it is on this very stage that the Swan Lake originated. Oops. It's stuck, did it?
Yeah, it's stuck frozen. Were you trying to make it big?
It's okay. It's okay because the point I was making is that if you and I can absolutely drop these links to the chat. And this is a beautiful production, by the way, my favorite and my favorite ballerina is that you have none of this pantomime in the Mariinsky version anymore. It is just dancing. And it is pretty amazing how you have a completely different scene to all the same music. And why it happened the way it happened would be, and speaking about instability of classics, you have two major companies doing one and the same ballet. Says on the poster on the bill it would say Marius Petipa and Lev Ivanov production of the Swan Lake, and yet you're going to have two completely different choreographies in one and the same scene. Again, it's a crucial scene, and why? Because in fact, counterintuitively, American Ballet Theater has in this particular spot within the valley has a original version of what was going on there in the ballet in when it premiered, which was 1985. No, 1895. Whereas in Mariinsky they changed it because let somebody has yes. Because yeah, they think about it as their own heritage that they can change as much as they can. Whereas in the American Ballet Theater, what they have is the version that they have comes down from someone who immigrated and basically just came with what they remembered. Potentially, maybe even using those notations I was referring to, and they held it as sacred. And it comes down from generation to generation, even though not a lot of people now understand this whole pantomime and what is going on stage. Now, okay, so moving on. I don't have a lot of time. Huh. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Yes, I will send the recording. No, absolutely. Um, um, that not many ballet scholars want to ask. And let me set the stage for it. So ballet has never been and probably never will be financially sustainable institution. Um, it requires from people who do it constant sacrifices in terms of dieting. Again, since around about a century now, inevitable physical pain and often unbearable schedules. By the way, it's a sort of a motto among the Russian dancers that um, if you woke up in the morning and nothing hurts, you're probably dead. That's the amount of physical pain that ballet dancers are supposed to endure, and they do gladly. So the majority of ballet dancers are underappreciated and underpaid. And of course, on top of that, aspiring dancers, particularly female, have to start ballet classes before their teenage year and never stop. This is the kind of learning experience that is for life. Ballet reproduces from a person to person only. You can't learn it from books. You can only learn it from a teacher. And they do it. Every ballet professional starts every day with the class, given by a teacher or a coach at the company. And again, yeah, this is a lifelong learning commitment. Ballet teachers are they are people who like there is no ballet teacher not born yet who wouldn't find something to correct in anybody's execution of steps. Would it be Mikhail Baryshnikov, Misty Copeland, or your last person in the row? And one reason for this is that, and here I want to go back to my PowerPoint, is because is it, yeah. Can you see it?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Is because the foundation of ballet dancing, the five positions of the feet, as you see here, is based on the principle of turnout, exemplified in first position. And this is something I want you to try, probably now, probably later, just how to see how profoundly unnatural it is. And this is your feet are lined up heel to heel so that they form a straight line from toe to toe. So this position is codified as early as in the 17th century. They're completely unnatural to human anatomy. So the question that ballet historians don't want to ask, because normally the histories tend to be triumphant histories. We go from success to success. So the question is, why and how has ballet an art form based on the 17th century French court dancing, like a very local and narrow thing? Why did it survive into the 21st century throughout the West and beyond? There's always an answer because it's great, and it is. But it's not enough because there are arts which did not survive being great, like my other passion that is silent film. How did ballet survive the arrival of modern dance and other seemingly more relevant and indeed more modern dance styles? And what did ballet's survival, and here we come to the point of it, have to do with Russia? And I do have an answer, and it lies in three R's, three capital R's: reproduction, religion, and revolution. Now, that ballet's anatomy goes against human anatomy is for a reason, because turnout allows for, yeah, it allows for great flexibility for the lower part of the body. That's a kind of dirty laundry of the ballet. More importantly, because historically it was this very unnaturalness that was associated with the elevated social status of its practitioners. French aristocrats had to show themselves physically different from their subjects. They couldn't really alter their bodies, but they could move those bodies in a different way. And it was a big deal. In fact, establishing a Royal Academy of Dance was literally one of the first things, order of business, that King Louis XIV did once he took power in 17th century in 1661. This is his decree. And by the way, he was actually an accomplished ballet dancer himself. Now, the Great French Revolution of 1789, and then finally the July Revolution of 1830, most importantly for the history of ballet, made class privileges less relevant, and as a result, social dancing kind of went its own way. It moved on from the academic, from what we now call classical dance. And so the ballet professionals had to move on too, geographically speaking, away from Paris to seek other places where they were better appreciated. And one of these places was, in fact, St. Petersburg, Russia. Not only, actually, there was quite a lot of things that were also going on in Northern Europe. Sweden and especially Denmark, still a kind of a bastion of classical dance. But anyway, so, and the more that academic dancing, again, or close, also known as classical dance or danse d'école, that is the school dance, so to say, the more it became obsolete on the social dance floor, the more nostalgic these people who had to emigrate to preserve their dance, to teach and to choreograph, because it was no longer in fashion in Paris. So, and many of them settled in Russia, the more nostalgic they were feeling. This nostalgia wasn't really social. They were all professional dancers and who never enjoyed any real, high social status. And yet they increasingly regarded this past as a paradise lost and themselves as the last man standing. That is, yeah, even if displaced. So in displacement, they are kind of still preserving their tradition. And they wanted to, yeah, work hard to preserve this lost world, even on a much smaller scale, in the teeny tiny enclosed community of a ballet company, or more importantly, a ballet school, which in Petersburg, of course, was the imperial institution, an enclosed and strictly enclosed boarding school. And it was importantly, it was never your extracurricular in the imperial ballet school. It was the main thing that you learned. There is no way to preserve ballet dancing other than by reproducing ballet dancers. And this is what these ballet immigrants did. Uh, so they taught. They taught these displaced ballet dancers, taught and made such this preservation of their art their mission. Marius Petipa, of course, the guy who here he is, originated much of classical ballet repertoire. Again, Sleeping Beauty, parts of Swan Lake, parts of Nutcracker, Don Quixote, a lot of stuff. And even the earlier ballets mostly come down to us in his versions, like Giselle, for instance. Um, or let's say much less known to the outside world, but no less worshipped in the ballet milieu, we have Christian Johansson, who was a Swede with Paris training, who died in Petersburg shortly after giving his last class in the age of 86. And it's not even a record. One of his pupils gave his last class at the age of 100. So this preservation effort they were engaged in meant, in theory, zero development. So they really resisted new techniques as much as they could, holding on the old style, not really as a style, but more as a set of values, more often understood as ethical. They talk about grace, they talk about purity. And to this day, by the way, at least in Russian, they refer to mistakes or things to be corrected in an execution of steps. They refer to it as gres, dirt. And it is for a reason, for instance, that 32 fouettes, this famously or infamously for some, acrobatic kind of invasion of acrobatics into ballet, Petipa was very much against it, but he had to include it because everybody wanted it, so he included it in the Swan Lake. But it is an evil princess that is performing this step. So again, it was all about surviving and conserving the heritage intact in displacement, despite the rapidly changing world around. If an analogy is needed, it would be, let's say, Amish communities or Hasidic communities. So people who really wanna keep the tradition going, no matter what's going on, in the surrounding world. And so, in fact, as a result, ballet in Russia came to be slowly but steadily came to be practiced really like a religion, as a religion. Several things helped along the way. First, because ballet narratives often included so-called fantastic act, or something known as ballet blanc, that is the white ballet, in which you have otherworldly creatures often airy, spirits, sylphids, maidens, turned swans, whatever, with ballerina as their leader, who is also happens to be an unattainable love interest for the perfectly earthly male lead, just like we just saw. In terms of choreography, this act would usually be exclusively based on classical dance. And this association between classical dance with an unattainable ideal over time came to attribute idealism to classical dance itself, at least in the eyes of the dancers. There's this wonderful essay by Susan Sontag called The Dancer in the Dance, who speaks about how she was stunned when Mikhail Baryshnikov gave a performance and she thought it was a performance of his life. It was the best, and she rushed to backstage to tell him so. And he said, no, I did this mistake and that mistake and that. And she talks in this essay about how there is this idea of unattainable perfection, unachievable perfection that every dancer abides to, no matter what audience understands or not. And she uses this wonderful, it's not even a metaphor, honestly, but anyway, so she goes, part of being a dancer is this cruelly self-punishing objectivity about one's shortcomings as viewed from the perspective of an ideal observer, not the public. More exacting than any real spectator could ever be. The God dance. This is almost a religious devotion we're talking about, to the perfection that is never achievable. Again, no teacher would tell you do everything right. There's always something to be perfected. Another thing that was important to this, close to religious idea of ballet for its practitioners in Russia, that came to be kind of more or less by the beginning of the 20th century, has to do with the religion proper, because Russian or Eastern Orthodox Church, and of course, majority of Russians did belong to it, saw itself as the last bastion of values long gone from its point of origin, that is the Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire. Absolutely the same narrative was the self-narrative of the Russian ballet, with old fronts standing for the Byzantine Empire. So we took our faith, we accepted our faith from someone who lost that faith. So now we have to preserve it. So this familiar idea of preserving values lost elsewhere worked easily for Russian dancers, who, and this is absolutely mind-boggling fact, is that who were kind of educated in such a religious manner, in both senses, God dance and God, that they actually had a church right there in the Academy of Dance, right there in the ballet school, which is completely unthinkable for anywhere else in Europe or anywhere, simply because church, especially Catholic Church, normally doesn't look very favorably on things, dance or even theater by itself. So the two religious narratives, the Orthodox Church and the ballet, that is the value that is preserved because it's long gone in its origin, the two merged perfectly. So one more last thing before I finish, or two actually, is this. So the historical narrative, the normal narrative of Russian ballet in the 20th century and its influence all over the world, usually focuses on Serge Diaghilev and his Ballet Russe company, a private company, importantly not imperial, recruited mostly from imperial theaters, which shook Paris. This is why Picasso and Matisse came to work in ballet for Diaghilev, for Ballet Russe. Shook the world, yes, with its modernist music, design, and choreography. But this choreography was actually kind of a revolt against the previous generation, against the classical dance, or what they by that time called the old ballet. So Ballet Russe did help elevate the ballet to the status of a leading performing art, but did little for the preservation of what I was just talking about, for the preservation of the backbone of ballet as an art, that is the classical dance. They didn't want to do classical dance. For them, they associated it with something gone and old. So all these 5 positions of the feet, this was not the value they were interested in particular. What did help in the preservation of this backbone of the classical dance was the Russian Revolution, because it resulted in hundreds of ballet professionals emigrating from Russia and just disseminating all over the world. And here the story repeats itself. Displaced from their home, which was no more, obviously old Russia, now Soviet Union, they came to the West and East, anywhere, Australia, Japan, South America, everywhere, on top of Europe and North America. They came with a mission to preserve what was left of it in their new home countries. And again, they set out to teach. Again, person to person, feet to feet. Let's say George Balanchine, a person who comes to mind, I guess, the founder of New York City Ballet, opened his school, proudly called the School of American Ballet, but staffed almost exclusively with Russian imperial dancers. He founded decades before he was able to found New York City Ballet. That was way more important, the school. He strictly adhered to his Orthodox faith in the process. And by the way, in his company, he was only half in jest referred to as God. So next up, what happened was, of course, the Cold War soft power competition, which was the tours to and fro, the American and Western European companies going to Soviet Union, Soviets going to America and the West. What oftentimes oftentimes people forget that they were actually successful on both sides. It was not only Soviet Russian ballet dancers incredibly popular and really, doing the work of soft power in America, but that was the end of the other way around. It worked just as well. Soviets were absolutely stunned by Balanchine, by Paris Opera, and by the possibilities of ballet in the West. But interestingly, they both claimed the classical heritage as their own. So Balanchine would say, "Oh no, I am the natural heir to the classical ballet tradition, to Perepa, to Petersburg style." And of course, the Soviets would say, "Oh no, actually, it is right where we are. This is the thing that we are preserving." So yeah, and of course, if you look at this particular photograph, it is not a coincidence in a way that the high jump and high lifts were so prioritized, not only because actually ballet moved into things athletic throughout the 20th century, which was an absolutely not the case in 19th century. In 19th century, they thought about it as an insult. Things acrobatics, things athletic. They wanted to be, yes, on the art side of things. But also because of, well, the idea of going all the way into the air, going all the way into space, of being able to defy gravity. So at the same time, though, so the soft power worked on whether it's space, whether it's ballet, it became sort of the self-identity for Russian culture. But it also, of course, the case that even though the tours were very successful from both sides, people fled in one direction only. And so this idea of high leap was actually also the idea of some of the best dancers from Leningrad, Mariinsky Theater, actually, like Baryshnikov, landing in the United States. So the story repeated once again. Was the Russian emigres fleeing and bringing their art with them that revitalized the art of ballet in the West in the 60s and 70s. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and ask whether anybody has questions.